Please welcome to the stage, Oscar Pipson.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Oscar Pipson, and I'd like to start by playing a quick game. Now, I'm going to show you pairs of musicians, and I want you to identify which one you think is cooler. Chuck Berry, Elvis Presley. Run DMC or the Beastie Boys. Kendrick Lamar or Macklemore. Beyonce or Iggy Azalea. Okay, now can I get a show of hands of those who favoured more with the right? And can I get a show of hands that those of you that favoured with the left? Okay, thank you. Now we're going to come back to this game, but today I'm excited to present my thesis, Sold, exploring the commodification and appropriation of cool. Now the idea of cool is not such a new topic, but it's new for me and it's new for a very particular reason. If we look at the scholarship around what is cool historically, there are several iconic books that address this topic. There were, however, two new books that I read that really changed my perspective: Black Cool by Rebecca Walker and The Aesthetic of Cool by Robert Thompson. In the latter, Thompson, a pioneering Afro-Atlantic art historian, traced the origins of the modern concept of cool back to the Yoruba tribe of West Africa. The citizens of the Yoruba city-states embraced a religious philosophy that valued composure or cool as one of its three main pillars. Thompson was able to directly translate the principle of Itutu to mean cool, and cool is the overarching value that binds these concepts together. The people of the Yoruba designed objects like the pictured mask that encouraged wearers to keep their cool. The mask presents the viewer with two sets of eyes, the one the wearer uses to see the world, and the one the world sees, which stay immutable. The inner identity is celebrated and hidden from view, protected by the outer identity. Masks like this were a weapon of choice, and used as a form of stoic reserve. Thompson notes that cool travelled with slaves to Latin America, the Caribbean, and the southern USA, arguing that cool survived and transformed itself in America amongst the slaves. So at this point, you could be looking at me up at the podium as a white guy from New Zealand having no place doing this work because my skin colour doesn't qualify me. And I had created a lot of slides apologising for this fact. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, although I will admit to you I did sweat it. The fact of the matter is that I'd read these books and it became apparent that this work was not only really interesting, but more importantly it needed to be done. What my research had revealed were two significant findings. Not only was cool indelibly linked to black culture, but cool was also indelibly linked to white appropriation and commodification of black culture in the United States. Now this created a personal conflict for me. Growing up, hip-hop formed one of my three pillars of cool, along with basketball and street fashion, all predominantly black cultural phenomena. And at the centre of these phenomena sat the ultimate modern of commodified cool, the sneaker. Now, as a kid, I loved sneakers. This is a photo of me at 10 years old with the Nike swoosh cut in the back of my head. So it's of no surprise then that my earliest memory of cool was this Nike Air Jordan sneaker. Now, at the time I perceived these shoes were cool simply because of their innovative aesthetic, when in reality what made the shoes cool was that they embodied the essence of Michael Jordan, and this is no accident. As Dick Butane and David Robbins note in their book Cool Rules, the marketing of sportswear remains the paradigm case of how an entire realm of action and experience can be transformed by commerce riding on the back of cool. Now this began in the 1960s when Madison Avenue, the engine behind consumer capitalism, understood that the cool ideology had big sales potential. This is when we see a shift away from a more spiritual cool, a defense mechanism, to a superficial cool that we associate with now. And this equation is not complicated. When corporations are looking for cool, they look to Black America. In 2014, Adidas, who had been struggling in the American market since the early 2000s, signed two cultural icons, Pharrell Williams and Kanye West, both of whom collaborated on product with the company. The result? From an all-time low in share price to an all-time high. And this represents a trend in America that only the outer appearance of coolness has remained relevant. As Rebecca Walker notes, from Air Jordans to gold teeth and huge diamonds, this generation thinks that black cool is something to buy, to put on, acquire. They don't understand that it's something they possess internally. Now this commodification of cool has three significant effects. It reduces a history and a lifestyle down to an aesthetic, it strips cultural artifacts of context, and it reinforces negative stereotypes. So today I'm going to talk about the sneaker through four lenses. service, digital, 3D product, and experience. Now, starting with the experience, I held an event called Conversations. The experience paired one white American with one black American and asked them to deconstruct their perception of cool as it relates to the other race. Participants were given a shoe, some markers, and a series of prompts on a dry erase surface to articulate their thoughts. One illustrated the right shoe and the other the left. At the end, the participants brought the shoes back together as a pair to talk about their experience.
I don't know, when I was young, like, Macaulay Culkin was the coolest thing. Home Alone, like, I don't know, something about it made me think that's what being able to stand on your own.
And it was also like, it was a lot of jewelry and like gold and like kind of decadence, which I liked a lot.
It's in America, like cool white culture has seemed to be basically just a lot of appropriation of different cultures.
You know, I kind of like got into it and was thinking a lot and felt weird and angry, and it's interesting.
I actually found myself leaning on like my youth and kind of leaning on the things that kind of made me think about life before color barriers.
Like as a white person, I don't really feel like I have any room to create any sort of commentary.
It's funny, like it originates with like young black kids and then everyone takes it on. The young black kids remain in the shadows.
One of the main reasons that a lot of this happens is, you know, it's for the money.
Even though there's like examples of stealing culture, I think there's also something about like celebrating and openness, like adopting other cultures, which is kind of cool.
Now, the goal of this project was to engage participants in an open and honest, if at times awkward, discussion about the differences, whether celebrated or shunned, and to ratify or otherwise my sense of place for either within cool. Reflecting on the events of that day, there were a couple of things I noticed. Black participants knew the cultural space well. They understood the complex narratives and felt their story had a place there, while participants openly expressed a lack of knowledge for the space and were at times apologetic for standing in it. Their willingness to acknowledge this territory as foreign ground was not unexpected. What perhaps surprised us all was the lack of knowledge on how to rectify this situation. Now, rather than leaving the voices within this discussion to the corporates who dominate this space, it was apparent individuals were keen to contribute ideas, understandings, and importantly ask the difficult questions. Introducing the Archives. The Archives is a digital platform that allows users to discuss the evolving cultural, racial, and political history of sneakers. What many athletic apparel companies fail to grasp is that the cultural meaning behind sneakers is a constantly evolving dialogue between the people who produce them and the people who wear them. In the app, you can browse news stories and trending topics, or if you're standing in front of a wall of sneakers and have no idea what you're looking at, you can hit the scan icon to explore while in store. The app will identify the shoe and then let you browse popular cultural commentary around the sneaker or add your own. The conversations can vary from the exotic dressing of the shoe as noted by the actual designer, or the reasons for the sneaker's popularity among certain cultural groups. One of the many things the app can help identify and shed light on is a real lack of diversity amongst designers in the footwear industry. When you Google footwear designer, this is what comes up. And the industry has acknowledged this is a problem, but it still remains. Speaking with Yuri Mile, a senior designer at Under Armour, he noted that the people who are designing the shoes are so different from the people consuming it that they don't even identify. Of the roughly 30 footwear designers at Under Armour, only 3 are black. With that, I introduce STEP. STEP is a non-profit organisation that partners with private sector athletic apparel companies to facilitate apparel and footwear-related design initiatives in low socioeconomic communities, while providing design and art-related scholarship opportunities to underrepresented Black American youth. STEP has 4 major functions: build a community presence by partnering with public schools, help facilitate internships in the industry, provide mentoring and portfolio development, and offer scholarships for further design education. Now, in my last project, I wanted to address the design of the sneaker. I want to take you back quickly to the Yoruba mask I referenced earlier. It spoke of a celebration of the separation between inner and outer identities. And with that prompt, I created Seal. Now, having never designed a shoe before, I got to work learning the ins and outs of shoemaking. I created pullovers, I experimented with different fabrics, created plenty of terrible patterns. And it took a really long time, but I was eventually able to get an accurate pattern which I could use to build my design. I then set about modelling, 3D printing and casting a sole, not without a few major failures, but all of this came together to produce the finished product. The outside of the shoe embodies a sense of calm resistance with a deliberate lack of vibrant expressive details. It's not until the wearer puts on or takes off the shoe that the inner identity, the colour, the texture and the pattern is revealed. Seal encourages users to keep their cool versus attempting to project cool, celebrating a personal, private and protected moment of cool. Now I'd like to finish on this note. Linguists believe a word must always mean what it once meant. But this is actually an etymological fallacy. It's a fallacy because meanings do change over time. Just as cool has gone from referring to a certain temperature to defining an entire industry. Words like people come bearing history, emitting sense and demonstrating changes picks up on the road they've travelled. Cool in its slang form is certainly an example of this, carrying an invisible statement of origins, reminding us of the treasures of black culture and the difficult histories of slavery and segregation. While cool in its modern form is incredibly nuanced, it can be shared, co-opted and appropriated. Its origins and its history, however, must not go forgotten or unacknowledged. Thank you. I'd like to say a special thank you to the department, my classmates, all of my faculty, and my mum and my dad who travelled all the way from New Zealand to be here today. Thank you.
We've had lots of fascinating discussions on this topic. I'll let your work speak for itself. But I actually have to ask about the Nike swoosh from your kid. That looks tattooed. Did somebody take a pen and color it in after you shaved it?
I can't remember how it was coloured in, but it was cut for sure. And I guess we just kind of put a bit of dye or something in there just to emphasise the fact.
Yeah, that's a serious commitment. You actually want to work in the shoe industry. Can you talk a little bit more about creating the actual prototype? I kind of love this design. I'm not a sneaker person, but I think that it would be kind of amazing, especially if people can start to customize the insides and then hide them. So the reveal is quite extraordinary, and I can imagine lots of Instagram videos of people unveiling their creations inside.
Yeah.
Go.
When I first started the project, I obviously had an idea that I wanted to work in this industry. Sports has played a huge role in my life growing up, I guess, up until I came to grad school and it became my life. But I wanted to challenge some of these social and cultural issues that existed with that industry and be able to go into that space with an understanding, a more complex understanding, to go in not only as a designer but potentially as an ally. And the shoe came about by thinking about this inside-out mentality and going back to those original origins of cool and trying to capture that essence, that inner essence of looking at resistance and personal statements, and not so much what we do now, which is this very outward, expressive flash of cool, which, as I kind of talked about, can be really, really harmful. So.
Well, I mean, given the supply chain that's involved in getting a shoe into the world, I can't imagine otherwise. But maybe you don't work in this industry. Maybe you make a new industry.
Absolutely, I think that would be incredibly interesting. And I think one of the great things about this program is you've put us in a position to very much to do that. So thank you.
And maybe some people in this room can talk to Oscar and help him launch that new business. Thank you, Oscar.
Thank you.